Imagine a world that is completely frozen solid. Civilization is totally collapsed. Starvation is just the everyday norm. And there's this eternal winter, allegedly caused by an entity known as the Ice Witch.
Right, which sounds like your standard post-apocalyptic setup,
Exactly. But the story we're doing a deep dive into today takes that freezing cold premise and literally sets it on fire.
It really creates quite the visual contrast. Today we are looking at Fight a Punch.
Yeah?
It's the first serialized original work by Tatsuki Fujimoto. And if you're familiar with Fujimoto, maybe you've read Chainsaw Man, he absolutely does not do normal.
Not at all.
This series ran on Shonen Jump Plus, and honestly, it really defined the platform's whole reputation for edgy experimental storytelling.
Yeah, it pushes a lot of boundaries. And our mission today for you listening is to sort of figure out how this thing works.
Yeah.
Because looking at the source material, it starts as this gritty, hyper-violent revenge story, but then it morphs into a complex commentary on...
Movies.
Right. Movies.
Yeah.
And the nature of acting.
It takes a very wild turn. But to understand the movie aspect and why it's so interesting, we first have to give you a quick overview of the work. We have to ground ourselves in the horror of the beginning.
Yeah, let's start with the overview.
So, the world is populated by normal humans, but also by the blessed. These are people born with miracles, basically superpowers. Our protagonist is a boy named Agni, and he has a really powerful regeneration blessing.
And we aren't talking about, just healing a paper cut here. In the context of a starving village, his regeneration essentially makes him...
The renewable food source.
Yeah, so dark.
That is the gruesome reality of it. Agni chops off his own limbs to feed the villagers. He regenerates, chops them off again. He is literally keeping his village alive with his own flesh.
Which is an incredibly heavy setup. But then the inciting incident happens, and somehow, it actually gets worse.
Yeah, enter a soldier named Doma. He has the blessing of eternal flame. So his fire never goes out until the target is completely turned to ash. Doma sees this cannibalism in Agni's village, is totally disgusted by it, and burns the entire place to the ground.
But here's the central paradox. Doma's fire doesn't stop until the target is ash.
Right.
And Agni regenerates instantly.
Exactly. So he can't turn to ash.
He's locked in this loop. The fire burns him, he heals, it burns him again. He is in constant, excruciating agony, and he eventually becomes this muscle-bound walking inferno. And Volume 1 frames this entirely as a revenge story, Agni just seeking to kill Doma.
But that brings us to the appeal of the work, right? Why it's actually so interesting. This is where the anti-jump concept comes in.
Because Fujimoto explicitly wanted to do things he couldn't get away with in the printed weekly Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
So how do we go from a burning man seeking revenge to...
a comedy.
Yeah, a dark comedy.
That is the genius of this series. Fujimoto just felt a straight revenge story was too boring. So by Volume 2, the tone shifts violently. He introduces a character named Togata.
Togata is such a strange variable. This 300-year-old regeneration blessed who is just totally obsessed with movies.
Togata is the key to the whole meta-narrative. Togata doesn't save Agni out of the goodness of their heart. Togata saves him to film a documentary about him.
So the main guy is suffering eternal physical torture, and his sidekick is essentially a director screaming cut and trying to get better lighting.
That is exactly it. And this leads to the real deep dive insight here, which is the theme of acting. The story is asking, are we ever truly living, or are we just performing roles? Agni plays the role of a god for his followers, a hero for the camera, and a brother for his sister.
It almost seems like the acting is a survival mechanism. The reality of his life is just way too painful. Being literally on fire, so he has to play a character just to function day to day.
That is the big takeaway. Even the villains are acting. And actually, speaking of talent and acting, the production background for this manga is fascinating. The assistant team on Fire Punch was legendary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you had Tatsuya Endo, who went on to create Spy X Family, and Yuji Kaku of Hell's Paradise.
Wait, that's like the absolute dream team of manga assistants in one room.
The editor explicitly noted they'd never be able to gather a room that talented again, and you can see it in the art. The cinematic paneling and the action flow perfectly into that movie motif.
Okay, so we have a story that goes from a frozen burning village to a meta movie set.
Yeah.
Where does a story like this actually end up?
It goes completely cosmic. By the end, the scope escalates to millions of years into the future. Characters actually evolve into tree-like deities floating in space, warming the planet.
That is massive.
It is. But despite the space trees and the eternal fire, it always comes back to one simple, recurring command given to Agni. live.
Live. It sounds like this nice positive affirmation, but for Agni, being told to live is almost a curse. It means enduing the fire.
And that is the core philosophical question of the work. In a world defined by pain, where everyone is forced into a role they never chose, what does it actually mean to live? Is survival enough, or do we need a delusion, like a movie script, just to make it bearable?
It's a really heavy question to leave you with. If you were burning eternally, would you have the strength to find a plot twist that keeps you going, or would you just let the credits roll? Something for you to think about. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.